All right, so how's everybody doing? So how'd you like the keynote?
Pretty
All right,
good, right?
Good, glad to hear it. So I'm Michael Flanagan.
I'm Bradley Millington.
And on behalf of the Azure team, we want to say that we're incredibly excited to introduce this preview to you today, and we're very eager to get your feedback. So definitely keep it coming. We want to make this thing awesome. All right, so what we wanted to do is take a step back and rethink the experience. Like the cloud, your management experience needs to scale to an endless array of linked services, and not just Microsoft services either. What we're bringing you today is one experience to manage your cloud and collaborate with your team, bringing the silos together into one consistent DevOps ecosystem. One experience, one cloud.
That's right. Yeah, as you saw in the keynote, we're really focused on delivering an amazing DevOps experience in this new Azure Preview portal. When we talk about DevOps, we're really talking about this virtuous cycle that gets created between the developers that are working day to day in your code base, acting on the code repository, doing check-ins, managing builds, and running and writing tests, all the way to the operations folks that are actually handling the management of your runtime resources in Azure, and that are monitoring those applications, gaining insights that can actually be used to feed that and inform the future development process. So that's what we mean by DevOps, and that's specifically the focus of this talk today, is to drill into what we think is a great future vision for how DevOps will be achieved in the new Azure portal. Now, in this talk specifically, we're going to talk about the developer side of things. This is actually a two-part series. This session is focused primarily on the developer experiences that we've delivered in this portal. And in the subsequent session, immediately following the break, Adam Abdelhamid and Steven Siciliano are going to talk through the operations side of it. So I encourage you to stick around after the break and catch the other session as well to get the full picture of this DevOps experience. They're going to be covering things like endpoint monitoring, application insights, auto-scaling, some of those really cool operations features that we're delivering to you in this new portal.
All the powerful insights that you can really take advantage of. It's going to be great.
That's right. So another thing that we're talking about when we talk about DevOps here is the coming together of the Visual Studio Online service and the Azure service to deliver a kind of a unique DevOps experience. We talked a little bit, you heard in the keynote, about breaking down the silos between the services that Microsoft has to offer. Clearly, all of the services that we deliver, provide value and great experiences in isolation. But we think that by bringing these services together, kind of into a common, unified experience, that we're able to actually deliver a more powerful experience, and one that actually, allows these services to, interact with each other and provide some very unique value that you could only get by putting them in the same place. One thing I want to say about that is, if you're an Azure customer and you're using Visual Studio Online today, we think that we've delivered a great experience and your experience has just gotten better. If you're an Azure customer and you're not using Visual Studio Online today, there's never been a better time to try it out. And we really encourage you to give it a shot. If you're a Visual Studio Online customer and you're not using Azure today, then your experience using Visual Studio Online today remains the same. You can use that service exactly as you have been. And we're really, really proud to announce that Visual Studio Online is GA as of today.
All right. Awesome. Thanks,
so
Bradley.
we spent some time in slides. Why don't we go ahead and move on to the demo?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You on? Are you on here? Of course. All right.
I had to get past my sign-in
So what
screen.
we're going to see here, this is an experience that you've probably seen before, like Windows Phone and Windows 8, and we call it the Start Board. Right? And it's like your heads-up display. It's like a heads-up display for your cloud. Right? Pin the parts you want, unpin what you don't, and customize it just for you. Right? So typically what we would do is we jump into the tour, where we can explain some of the core concepts and interactions that we have within this new preview. But since you all sat through the keynote, you're experts already, so we can skip past that. And let's just, let's go create something new. Bradley, what do you?
Sounds like a good idea. So I've got an application that I've been working on with some friends. And it's a Git-based repository that I've already got a local clone of that on my machine. So why don't we actually collaborate together to take that application further, creating a Visual Studio Online project to host it, and we'll collaborate.
That sounds good. Let's go ahead and do that. So what you're going to see here is what we have is a list of some of the featured items that you can create within the preview today. But you know what? Let's go ahead and jump in and check out everything in the gallery. All right, so you saw the gallery in the keynote. What the gallery is, it's our ecosystem. We're bringing together the entire ecosystem of apps and services that you can create for your cloud. From the web app gallery to the VM gallery, to even including add-ons within the store. We're bringing it all together into one consistent experience. Whether you're creating a simple web app in a database or a complicated multi-server SharePoint farm, it will all be in the gallery. We've already populated the gallery with a lot of popular apps and services that we think are important to Azure customers. But we do plan to open this up to partners in the community to contribute to your own apps to make sure that your services are also sitting in here as well.
That's right. And actually, there's a session later on this afternoon that's going to go into that, the resource group management session later this afternoon by Gautam and Nathan Totten. They're going to go deep into that whole resource group management and as well as talk about the templating system and exactly how you can write templates that can orchestrate the creation of resources all at once inside of this gallery experience.
All right, so let's just go ahead and jump in and create our team project.
That's right. So I'm looking at the team project landing page, and I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And here, let's go ahead and give a name for our site. I'm going to call it build demo, and amazingly, that one's not taken. OK, so let's take it, call it build demo here. And as I mentioned, the repository I have is a Git-based repository, so I'm going to choose Git version control. If you use Team Foundation Service version control today, you can absolutely use that with the new portal as well. Also note that team projects are parented by an account in Visual Studio Online. Now, creating an account in the new portal is as easy as just typing the name of the account. I can go drill into these blades and just type the name. But I've already created an account ahead of time, so I'm going to go ahead and pick one of my existing accounts. Now, one thing to notice here is the accounts that I'm looking at in this list are accounts that I've created using the preview portal already. So they're the accounts that I created here. If you're a Visual Studio Online customer today and you have existing accounts, we're absolutely going to eventually turn on an experience to allow you to consume them here. That's not enabled in the preview today. So the accounts that you'll see are the ones that you create using the preview for now. So because the account was already created, it was created inside of a resource group. And that means the project is just going to be locked to that same resource group as well. And I've basically created a separate resource group to contain my accounts and my projects because they all kind of share that common lifetime concern. So that's kind of the reason why I would group them together in a resource group. Also to note that my account is associated to a subscription. This is very similar to what you're doing in the Azure vCurrent portal today. You can connect your Visual Studio Online accounts to a subscription to be able to opt into paid services and to monitor your bill. Historically, there have been some impediments to which accounts you can map to which subscriptions. I'm happy to announce that we've taken those impediments away as of today. You can map multiple Visual Studio Online accounts to one subscription. And you can also use your MSDN subscription to create Visual Studio Online accounts, like I'm doing here right now.
I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Yeah. So I've created a team project here, and while that's creating, why don't we go ahead and create a website to go ahead and host the code that we're going to push. So we're looking at the website blade here, and I'll go ahead and type, let's see, what did I call it? Build demo. I'm going to call it build demo site. And that one's taken. How about build demo site 123? That works. Cool. And one thing to note here is I'm going to go ahead and create another resource group to contain this. And the reason here again is the resource groups are meant to kind of collect resources that share a common lifetime. And my website doesn't contain or doesn't actually share a lifetime with my team project. So I want to make sure that I put that into a separate resource group altogether. As an example, as I sort of spin up and tear down my deployment environments, I don't necessarily want to spin up and tear down my source code or my test environment. Yeah, that would be pretty bad, right?
No, not good.
Yeah. So that's why I'm putting it in a separate group. And let's go ahead and create that as well.
All right, so one of the things we can see here is that the Notifications Hub is letting us know that we have two things going on right now. So you can think of the Notifications Hub like your personal secretary. The Notifications Hub is keeping a tally of all your unread messages, letting you know what's going on while you're busy hard at work. And the Notifications Hub will also let you know what's in progress, like we can see here. So we can see that the team project was created, so let's go ahead and jump into that.
That's right. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the team project part. And a quick orientation to what you see here. At the top, we see something we call a resource map. And that actually gives you kind of a pictorial representation of the resources that are in this group. In this case, it's just the team project and its associated account. I also have a quick start, if I want to learn how to get started and some of the things I can do with the team project, and the properties of that team project as well. And this is sort of a standard standard set of parts that you'd see at the top of any resource in this experience. We also have a set of lenses. I have a code lens that shows me the repositories that I have, in this case the default Git repository we just created, and an ability to open that in Visual Studio. We've got a build lens, which gives me information about my build definitions in my project and gives me the ability to set up deployment to an Azure website. And I have a work lens that shows me the backlog of work items that I have and a part to go ahead and add users to the project. One thing to note is that organization of lenses, build, code, and work, that's the exact organization that you see on the Visual Studio Online site today. So we have work, code, and build as kind of the primary concepts in that UI. And we provide easy navigation back and forth between the Azure portal and the Visual Studio Online portal as well. So I don't have any code. I'm going to go ahead and click this part because it's beckoning me to add code to my repository. Now I could click here and I'd get great instructions for how I could actually go check in code using any of my favorite tools. But I already kind of know what I'm doing here. So rather than do that, I have a local clone already. I'm going to go ahead and just create a remote to the Azure repository and go ahead and push my code there. So let me copy that, pop out here, and I'm going to say, let's go ahead and paste that. And I'll say git remote add, and we got to give it a name. How about build demo? I don't know what we call it, 1, 2, 3. So git remote add build demo 1, 2, 3. And we'll say git push build demo 1, 2, 3, the master branch.
Maybe we should have said this was going to be a talk about Git.
We won't be here for very long. So I'll go ahead and type my credentials.
So what password are you typing in?
Yeah, you'd like to know. OK. And that's gone ahead and pushed it right up to my site. If we come back here, kind of close these blades here, we can see that that code just immediately shows up. It's been populated into my repository now. And I can see that all the commits that were in that local repository have been transferred on up to this repository as well. I can drill down, and I can look at the commits that I've checked in. And I can even kind of drill down to like a specific commit, for example. This is one that my friend checked in. And we can actually look at the files associated with that. We can drill in even further and look at all the diffs associated with those files and really be able to navigate our repository and the commits associated with it very, very easily here.
This is a great way to just dig into the code to see some of the changes and the commits that are happening in your repository.
Yeah. I was going to show you the code navigation. It looks like there's a little delay for that to populate, so we'll come back to that part. So cool. So we've got some code here. And I think the next thing I want to do is, I want to set it up so this thing automatically deploys over to the website we created. Now, you'll remember from the keynote earlier today, we set up continuous deployment from the team project to a website, but we set it up kind of directly to that, to the production slot of the website. In this case, we're going to do something a little bit more real world. So I'm going to go to the website. And one of the features that websites introduces is this notion of deployment slots. And what a deployment slot is a way that I can basically create a staging environment or a test environment, and I can deploy there first and make sure everything's actually good and works well. And then when I'm ready, I can swap that instantaneously over to the production site with 0 downtime. So that's sort of basically what deployment slots allow for. It also is kind of convenient. You can warm up the site, so you can kind of avoid things like the .NET kind of warm up time for a cold start. There's a lot of good advantages to being able to set up and get your site all up and running, and then just do that instantaneous switch over to production. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and set up a deployment slot. And I don't have any slots yet, so I'll add one. And let's call this staging.
See the notifications hub letting us know that it's in progress. This one should be a quick one. There we go.
There we go. The staging slot is there. And notice that it actually created a peer website with a suffix -staging to the end of the name. So there's some association between the production and the staging slot here. And then I can sort of drill down and notice that the resource map actually shows both the production slot and the staging slot kind of associated to each other. And the neat thing about slots is that they actually are in fact just websites. So the blade that I see here is the same blade that I would see when I navigate to any website. And that includes the ability to set up continuous deployment. So I'm going to set up deployment to my staging slot from my Visual Studio Online project. Now, if you're using the full Azure portal today, you might recognize this list of providers. We actually support a number of different providers you can deploy from, including third-party providers like GitHub, Codeplex, Bitbucket, and Dropbox. We're absolutely working hard to enable that in this preview portal, and this is where you'll find that feature. For now, those are coming soon. So we'll go ahead and click on Visual Studio Online and find the project that we created. You can see I've been practicing a lot. And what do we call this thing? Build demo?
Build demo.
OK.
Yep.
Let's take that one.
Luckily, we used the same name across the board. Oh.
That's good. So we'll use the build demo repository. And we'll pick the master branch. Those are all the defaults we expect. And let's go ahead and click create. So what's happening under the hood here is it's setting up continuous deployment. And what it's really doing under the hood is it's creating a build definition inside of that team project. And that build definition is going to automatically trigger every time I check in code. So when I check in code, it'll trigger. It'll run the build. It'll run the tests. And if everything succeeds, if the build succeeds, it'll deploy to the website using the deployment publishing credentials for that, for that website. I can see that the setup continuous deployment part is mutated to indicate what the latest deployment is. And I don't have any right now. It says there's no latest deployment. But in fact, in the background, there is a build that's been kicked off that's actually deploying right now to the site by virtue of the fact that I already had code in my team project. I can actually do this in either order. If I set up continuous deployment first and then go check in code, checking in the code would trigger that deployment as well. If I go back up to the top, because I've associated the staging slot to the team project, I can see that the resource map shows that association, and the team project shows up here. Now, it shows up with a link icon. The reason it does that is the team project is actually in a different resource group. And so we show it as kind of a soft link, if you will, as opposed to the staging and production slots, which live in the same resource group. The resource map also provides a convenient way to navigate back and forth between resources. And now I can navigate over to the website and see, or to the project, and see that the project has that same soft link back to its staging slot. So this part's pretty cool. I think I'm going to go ahead and pin that to my start board and customize that. Let's actually blow it up to hero wide, for example. Kind of make that my own.
That looks great.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
So you've been doing all this. But you know what? I'm just kind of hanging out. Any chance you could add me to the project?
It's probably a good idea. I think I need to put you to work. And what would be a team project without actually having a team to collaborate with, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add Michael to the project. If we come back to the team project, we can see that build is already in progress, by the way. So it's triggered. It's running. We won't wait for it. We'll come back to that in a little bit. And so one thing to know before I add Michael to the project is that these projects are all backed by Azure Active Directory. And you're getting a glimpse or an early preview, if you will, into the Active Directory integration between with Visual Studio Online. We're doing this basically so that you have more control and enhanced security over who can access your source code, right? Only people in your organization can access your source code. So we were actually, these projects require that users that you're going to add and remove to the project also live inside of the directory associated to that project.
And this is something typically you would have already done for people that are collaborating with you. They'd already be within your organization and that directory that you have associated with that organization.
That's right.
So while Bradley goes into what we're going to do is we're going to hop out. We don't have Azure Active Directory in the preview today, but Bradley's going to go ahead and hop out into that experience and add me to the portal.
So one thing to note here is that we're working on an experience to add users to the project right here in the new portal. We don't have it yet, so we've given you some convenient links to go out to the management experiences where they live. So I'll go ahead and click on the Azure Active Directory, and that should take me straight to the directory where I can add Michael.
Yeah, one thing that's great about this Azure Active Directory and Visual Studio Online integration is that it's an enhanced level of security and control for your enterprises. It ensures only the right people get access to your code. We definitely don't want just some random Microsoft account getting in there and potentially leaking your code. And this is important because it's been a big ask from large enterprises who are already managing their directories. So enterprises that already have federations set up and configured with Azure Active Directory today, you don't even need to do anything because you're good. And looks like we're having
having trouble getting the directory. It's okay. I was going to show you that it's very easy to add a user here. But fortunately, Michael is already in my directory. So
it's always good to have a backup plan.
It's always good to have a backup plan. That's right. But yeah, that's basically the Azure vCurrent portal. I'm sure it's getting slammed at the moment. OK, so let's go ahead and add Michael to the project. Assuming that he's in the Azure Active Directory, I can go add him to the project. And here on Visual Studio Online, I can see that I'm already added to the project. I'll go ahead and add user and type Michael's username.
I'm going to be looking forward to a lot of emails.
Yeah. Hit save. And notice that because this is an Azure Active Directory backed project, it's also telling me that I should go out to the directory and make sure Michael's there. Just an extra forewarning. OK, so you're in. You can probably go ahead and get to work.
All right, awesome.
So we spent a little time talking about the team project. I want to focus in on the account briefly. So this resource map shows an association to the Visual Studio Online account, and I can click on that. I think. There we go, little glitches. All right, so we've got an account blade here, and that represents the Visual Studio Online account. I can see now that I have 2 users associated to the account. Because I added Michael to the project, he's automatically added to my account as well. And I can click out here to get to that user management experience in Visual Studio Online. As I said, we're working to actually enable the user's experience right here in the preview portal soon. So an account actually offers a number of free benefits, and I want to kind of articulate those here. So first thing, with an account, I can create as many private, free team projects as I want under that account. That's something that pretty much none of our competitors offer, is the ability to create, perpetually free, unlimited, an unlimited number of private projects. With those free projects, you get the ability to add 5 basic user licenses. So I've added Michael here. I could add 3 more basic users. And I can add an unlimited number of MSDN-based users as well. Now, if I outgrow the ability to add users and I want to add more, I can opt into paid licenses at that point. Similarly, I'm given a limited capacity of build and load test usage that I can use every month, and this is going to be great for small to medium projects, with 5 or so users and using a moderate number of builds. That's pretty much all I would need. Now, if my project grows and I kind of outgrow that capacity, I can scale up, and the scale part will actually navigate me over again to the Azure vCurrent portal, which maybe we'll get lucky the second time. And it looks like maybe I was just actually, it didn't think I was signed in. Yeah, so it should actually take me over to the Azure vCurrent portal, where I can see, oh, I'm in the wrong tenant. I actually have a couple of different tenants here. So I'll be able to see my Visual Studio Online accounts connected to my subscription here, and I'll have the ability to opt into licenses, opt into paid usage, and so on. And so I think the meta point here is that the accounts that I've created in the Azure Preview portal are automatically connected and also visible in the Azure vCurrent portal. So yeah, again, I could opt into those services here. Similarly, if I've opted into those services, I can monitor my usage of how much of this build capacity and load test capacity am I using by looking at a dashboard. And we're going to bring those dashboard experiences back over to the preview portal as well. You can see a set of coming soon kind of placeholder parts here that will give you those insights into exactly how much capacity you're using across your Visual Studio account. So all that's coming very, very soon. So the last thing I want to do, I've added Michael to the project. I want him to get some work done. So I'm going to go ahead and add some work items for him to do. We'll go into the backlog here, and let's add some work items for Michael. And I can actually see Michael's already been hard at work, adding work items for, it looks like quite a few to me. I'm not washing your car, Michael.
It's dirty, though.
Yeah.
Need somebody to.
You can dream on. So you can see Michael was able to quickly add a bunch of work items. Adding work items is pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and add one for Michael to clean up all his bogus work items. And we'll make that a bug and hit enter here. So everything is basically keyboard focused here. I can quickly just type the titles of work items and enter them very quickly. This is a projection of the Visual Studio Online backlog. So it's kind of a simplified version of that where I'm able to see product backlog items and bugs kind of interleaved in an ordered list. So let's go in. I can open up the details for a particular work item. I could type a description. I can go ahead and assign this to Michael, for example. And let's make this a critical issue. And save it. The other thing I can do is, because this is an ordered list, I can actually move things around pretty easily. So I can drag things around, make sure that all of Michael's work items are at the top, all of mine are at the bottom, and so on.
Yes, can we just move that vacation one up to the top? I mean, I think that might help for me.
Yeah, get through your first stuff first. So cool. So at this point, I've set up the project. We can notice that the deployment to our staging cloud is done. Let's go drill into that. And I'll actually go navigate, I guess, over to the website. Maybe we can use the topology blade or the resource map part. And let's just go ahead and browse and make sure that staging, the staging site has been deployed correctly.
So we're not going to talk too much about this website. The website will be shown a little bit later in the next demo.
Yeah, so the website's actually working. Look at all those friendly faces. So it looks good. So I think I'm ready to go ahead and swap that to production. So I can come over here, hit swap, click on the production site, and hit select. And you can see that it's swapping. I get a notification that that swap is in progress.
Should be another quick one here.
Yeah, it doesn't take too long. I guess in the meantime, I can actually go ahead and navigate over to the production site. So I can bring up the staging and production blades side by side. I love the fact that I can actually navigate so easily between all my different resources using that map. You can see I've got team project to the staging slot to the production slot, all kind of right in a row. So it looks like the swap successful. Is that right? Yep, successfully swapped. So now if I browse to the staging site, I can see that it's using the default homepage that was formerly in the production site. And if I click on the production site, I can see that my live running app has moved over there. So at this point, I want to hand it over to Michael to kind of show you some of the typical day in the life of a developer experiences that you would have using this new portal.
All right, thanks, Bradley. All right, so let's switch over here. This should
Number 2.
Yeah. There we go. All right. So what you'll see here is, well, actually, let me take a step back. There's one point that we kind of glossed over. When Bradley gave me access to the team project, he didn't actually add me to the subscription. And I think that's important because typically today, when you go into the Azure portal, only subscription admins are in there. But Bradley doesn't quite trust me yet to manage his website, so he only added me to the team project. Right? So this additional flexibility is great because it allows me to hop in, help out with code, check in against some work items, and just help that product improve.
And I don't have to make him a co-administrator of my subscription. That's
Exactly.
the key point, right?
Exactly. So, but I still get the same experience. I got the start board. I've got all my hubs. I can even browse the gallery if I want. And the only limitations that I really have is I can't create anything new because I don't have a subscription, and I can't see anything that I don't have access to, like Bradley's websites. So if I do try to create something new, then I'll get this nice friendly message just to let me know, hey, you need a subscription. Here's what you need to do to get that. Typically, I would go through and do that, but you know what? We can skip past that for now. What I actually want to do is I want to show you that, one, I don't see any of Bradley's websites, and two, using this powerful browse hub where I can just navigate to anything within the system, I can jump over to see team projects, and I see that I do see his team projects, right? I can jump into that build demo and see everything that he has in there. So now what I want to do is I want to time travel a little bit, and let's jump to the future. And in this future, I've been able to convince Bradley that I do need access to his subscription. So he's made me a subscription admin, so now I can help him manage his website when he gets to take his long vacations. Right? And so in this experience, I've had some time, and I've customized the start board just for me. Right? The things that I care about most, I put up at the top left. I've got my code. I can jump into Visual Studio with one click. I've got my backlog, my build definitions. Looks like we need to touch on that in a little bit. And now that he did give me access, I can see the resource map that we have for our resource group. And I can see that both of our site, our production site and our staging site are both healthy. Team projects looking good, aside from that little build issue that we'll look into in a second. And I can even check out the global health of the services I care about. So I've pinned the websites. I can see we're all green. That's good. Traffic Manager looks good. SQL Databases looks good. And I can even watch as I rack up costs on Bradley's credit card here. That's always fun.
Don't go crazy.
All right, so let's jump in and see what's going on within the team project. So earlier we had talked about, we saw the backlog. So I see that I've got 6 items assigned to me, so let's go ahead and jump in there. All right, so it looks like I've got a build failure and broken test. So let me grab this work item ID. Looks like we're bug 51. So made a reference to this earlier, so we saw that the build is broken. Actually, let me go into the latest build here. All right, so in latest build, what we'll see is, as you would expect, the latest build. What we're going to see on this blade is we have build results that's showing me that compilation failure. I can dig into the properties of the build if I want to. I can also see any commits that went into this. I see that there were 3 commits. This wasn't deployed, obviously, because the build had failed. And then I can see any work items. Apparently, people aren't checking in against work items, so that's not good. We'll have to talk about that later. So jumping into this build failure, it looks like the solution failed to build. We got 1 error. All right, so this looks like a complicated one, but you know what? Let's just go ahead and dig into it. So we're missing a semicolon on line 142.
How could that possibly have happened?
I don't know. It's crazy. Chalk it up to demos. All right, speaking of which, there we go. All right, so I'm going to scroll down to 142 just so I can kind of take a look just to make sure this is as simple as it sounds. Line 142, yep, seems pretty simple. That's weird though.
Yeah, I wonder how it actually happened. Why don't we find out?
So what we have this history command up at the top of the blade. We'll jump in there and we'll see a list of all the commits that happened against that file, as one would expect. Looks like Bradley has made some changes in here. Looks like he wanted to update a method to remove unwanted code. So let's go ahead and view a diff of this. We've got a targeted diff. If I wanted to, I could drill into each of the files. Looks like Bradley only changed this one file, and apparently Bradley, looks like you think semicolons aren't necessary.
Yeah, I'd just like your beeper to go off at 2 a.m.
Ah, that's what it is. All right. Okay, well, luckily we can fix this pretty quick. So typically what we would do is open this in Visual Studio. We would go back to we would jump back to the team project blade and click on that open in Visual Studio part, because that is honestly the right place to be making these changes, so that way we can build it and test it locally before checking it in.
One thing I want to point out here is just how powerful this experience is to where Michael was able to go from the build status, the actual failure, drill all the way down into the log file, see the specific error, get straight to the file where that error occurred, and then from that file kind of diagnose the root cause of the issue, like down into the commit history and so on, all in kind of one single seamless thread, or journey, if you will. So those are the kinds of experiences that we're really hoping to deliver with this new portal to allow you to kind of, just continue to kind of going down a path to drill down and gain, deeper and deeper insights into what's actually going on in your services.
All right, so I've made that change live. It's checked in. Again, we wouldn't typically do this, but since it's a simple change, we can make that one pretty confidently. So what we'll see when we go back here is that we should see the CI build kick off any minute now. For now, let me go back in here to the backlog. What I want to do is mark this as complete. Mark that as completed. Save that. And I actually typed the wrong bug number in there. Surprise, surprise. All right, and then let's look at the next one, 49. I'm going to remember that. All right. So then let's here we go. Actually, let's jump into this real quick just to show this off. So when we saw this build was just kicked off. So now we can dig into the build. And there's not a whole lot of interesting things going on here, but there is one thing that we do want to point out, is that from the cloud, you can look at the activity log of your build. This is the same activity log that you would see within Visual Studio, same commands, same output, just view it from your cloud no matter where you are. All right, we're not going to sit here and watch this, but if that's something that you're interested in, just watching the progress of your build, it's there for you. All right, and look at it go. Wow, there. All right, so jumping back over, bug 49. All right, got to keep reminding myself. All right, so we're jumping into this nightly build, and, clicked on the wrong part.
One thing to notice here on this build definitions is if you have multiple build definitions in your project, they'll actually show up here,
Yep.
and you'll see on the build definitions part the set of unique build definitions that you have across that your project, and the status of the latest build for each of those build definitions, including whether or not one of those builds are in progress. And it'll always sort of be like a most recently kicked off list, so it'll be in kind of reverse chronological order of when those things are kicked off. So we can see we have two definitions here, a nightly build definition and a continuous one.
Yep. And that's one of the things that you'll see within here is we want to provide quick access to your resources and the things that we're linking to. So that's why we've got these different hit targets that bring up the different experiences. So anyways, let's just jump right in here, see what's going on here. Looks like it's partially successful. Looks like the test runs. So we got an integration test. So what we're looking at here on the build results is we see that the solution that was built, we see we ran 24 unit tests. They all passed. That's great. But it looks like one of our integration tests had failed. So jumping in there, what we're going to see is just a high-level summary of the integration tests that were run. 8 passed, 1 failed. And I can see here that get photos by emotion, looks like that test had failed. So let's go over. One
thing I want to point out here is it's a little bit of a demo scenario. Obviously, on that test blade, you'd expect to be able to drill down a little bit, click on that test failure, be getting insights into specifically what went wrong with that test right then and there, and drill all the way down into the file. Those are definitely like downstream journey experiences that we're working on. For the moment, the test blade kind of just gives you an aggregate, set of your test results for now.
Yeah, so I know where this file is. I know where this test is, so I'm going to jump into our Azure Photo Gateway tests. And I can scroll down a little bit, and I see that, all right, so it looks like this is the test that had failed. And I can investigate it here, and if I'm crazy, I could actually make that change. But you know what? I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that, that we have this ability to dig into the code. And actually, if this is a file that I care about, I can actually flag different files and folders as favorites. I've actually already done that, which is why that's dimmed out. So at any point in time, if I need to, I can jump straight to that test. Right? All right, but for now, you know what? This is a test. I want to make sure it actually runs before checking it in. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio and pray that this thing happens fast. Go. Faster, please. All right. So here we go. And so we're opening up into Visual Studio, going straight into connecting directly to the team project. I'm going to open up the solution we have here. And actually, the first thing that I want to do is close this window, is jump into the builds. So we know that it was the nightly builds that had failed. So let me actually open up the nightly builds, dig into this one. So it looks like integration test 8 of 9. So then if I dig into that, I can see that looks like we expected 1, had 0, didn't return the correct number of angry photos, whatever that means. All right, so then I'm going to go jump over to the, let me copy my test name a little bit. I'm going to jump over to Test Explorer, find the right test, and it's not seeing anything. All right, so I'm just going to jump directly to it. I know where it is. All right, so digging into my tests, here we go. All right, so we know this is the test that failed. It said that we expected 0, had one result for, or expected 1. Well, there were actually 0 angry photos. Kind of looking at the test here, I can see that that we're mocking up a set of photos and going ahead and tagging those. It looks like there are no angry photos that have been tagged. So it looks like the code is actually working correctly. So if I look down here at the assertions, yep, some bonehead. I created this test, so apparently that was me. But looks like I accidentally typed in an extra character there. This looks right. I'm going to go ahead and run this test. We can jump over to All right. I didn't build the solution. So come on. Built a solution. Run the test for me. All right. Well, moving on. I'm confident that this is going to work.
How many times last night did you make the same thing?
Yes, I don't know what's going on. But anyways, whatever. We've made the change. I'm confident this is going to work. You know what? I can just go ahead and check this in. So here we go. Team projects. Same thing that you've seen before. Go to home, changes. Fix the test. Commit and sync. So now this is just going to push this up to the repository. Everything looks good. And now what I want to do is I actually want to go kick off that nightly build again, because I want to see it go green before we actually go live. So we'll jump into builds again, right-click on nightly, queue new build, say OK. All right, so now that should be on its way. Looks like our CI build is also in progress. So we've got both of these now in progress. We can switch back to the site. We should see these kick off any minute now. Actually, looks like our CI test is already green, so we're good there. We fixed that build issue. Our nightly build should kick off any second now, but you know what? We're not going to stick around for it. We're very confident that this is going to pass. We wouldn't typically do this, but seeing as though, oh, looks like that kicked off again. Oh, because I made a check-in.
You queued the build.
There you go. CI at work. It's great. So that's probably why the nightly build hasn't been started yet, just because it's waiting in line. So
right.
actually, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the Journeys Hub to switch over to our website. So the Journeys Hub is like a task switcher for your cloud. We have these experiences where you can start a number of different paths, which we refer to as journeys, down through your cloud into the resources that you need to manage. And just use the Journeys Hub to quickly task switch between those. So that way you can keep all of them open and just switch to the thing that you need at the time that you need it. Right? So I switched over to the staging site. What I want to do is, now that CI build has been run with the updated build that actually works, we can browse this real quick and make sure that it works. Things are looking good. Great. Lots of happy faces. Right? And so typically, what we would do is we would wait for the build to succeed, the nightly build, so we can verify. But you know what? I'm going to go crazy, since this is a demo, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and swap this. So again, this is in our staging slot, so we haven't pushed it to production. We want to see these latest changes, so just select the slot that I want to push it to, which is going to be our production. Kick that off. This will happen pretty quickly again, like we saw earlier. Notifications Hub letting us know that this is in progress. And I'm going to jump over to the prod site real quick. And that's running. That's great. Come on, finish swapping. Thank you. All right, looks like we're swapped. So now, kind of like Bradley had shown before, I can jump to this. Oh, shoot. I refreshed. Well, anyways. All right, luckily, my journey is maintained. I can go back to where I was. That's a feature.
Yeah, actually, that is a feature. So all the state of your entire journey, the state of the entire portal, is actually maintained on the server side, including kind of all the customizations that you've made and which journeys are open and so on. And so if you were to walk away from one machine and go to another machine and open it up, you would start from exactly where you left off. So that's one of the really great features of this portal. And it also means that even though Michael was accidentally refreshed the portal, it came right back to exactly where he was. And so that's a great feature we're proud of.
Definitely, very awesome. And that'll happen between computers, so you can start on your desktop and then finish on your laptop or your tablet. It'll work every time. All right, so now that we're on the production site again, I can actually browse to that, and I'll see that everything looks good.
Yeah, so that's great. So I want to go ahead and just recap what you've seen today. We saw just how incredibly easy it was to create team projects. How basically you can create those accounts, and those accounts get automatically associated to your subscription. You get a bunch of free benefits from those Visual Studio accounts, and if you outgrow those benefits, you can easily scale to add additional capacity as needed. Adding code is super easy. Being able to like manage your continuous deployments and get insights into the builds that are happening is very easy. We've got a very simplified work item tracking system that'll allow you to kind of track work items and bugs associated with your runtime environments, kind of right then and there in one experience. And then, as Michael showed in the sort of typical day in the life of a developer experience, it's really easy to kind of gain insights about why things are happening in your builds, drill all the way down into those failures, look at logs, diagnose root causes, make fixes right then and there in the portal if you like, or spawn Visual Studio directly from that portal and connect automatically to the team project, make changes offline, and push them back. Again, this is just the beginning of all the experiences that we hope to deliver that are very sort of developer-centric. And we really hope to enable an amazing DevOps experience. Now, one thing, if we can go back to the app here,
go ahead.
or actually to the site.
Oh.
There we go. So one thing we haven't mentioned so far is that this app is basically showing all the friendly faces of the people on our team that have been working day in and day out to deliver this amazing experience to you. And we want to thank you very much for your time today, and let's give all these folks a really big round of applause for the hard work they put into delivering this experience for Build.
Yes. Thank you.
Hope you have a great conference. We're going to stick around and answer questions. I believe there's mics in between the aisles, so you're welcome to come up and ask us questions at this time. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to, if we could go back to slides briefly, I'd like to keep a slide up as well. Thank you. So I do want to make sure, this is part one of a two-part series. The session immediately following the break is going to cover the operations side of the DevOps experience. So we've covered kind of the developer experiences. I encourage you to stick around for Adam and Steven's talk that's going to go deep into application insights and auto scaling and endpoint monitoring and some amazing features there, how you manage your websites and your databases. And then later in the afternoon, there's a session from Gautam and Nathan Taunton. They're going to talk about the Azure Resource Group model, including like the templating system, how you can actually provision and manage all of those resources in those lifecycle containers all at once. So I encourage you to attend that session as well if you're interested in learning more about that. And lastly, your feedback is super important. So if you want to scan the code here, we really want to know what you thought of the session. We really want to know not only what you thought of the session and our presentation here, but what you're feeling about the product and what you'd like to see from us in the future. Thanks very much. I'll take the first question now.
Let's go ahead and start with two.
Okay, I've got two questions actually. First would be, where's support for cloud services? We use cloud services, web, and worker roles all the time, and right now, that only supports TFS repositories, and right now, Azure websites only support Git repositories for continuous deployment. My second question is, what are your plans for allowing more complex build deploy processes when you start getting into more complex branching schemes and multiple environments? For example, we have a standalone QA environment and a separate production environment.
I can talk to both of those, yeah.
Okay.
So the first question was, basically how are you going to manage cloud services in addition to things like Azure websites? So today, in the Azure vCurrent experience, Visual Studio Online does in fact support continuous deployment to both Azure websites and cloud services, and the ability to VIP swap those production and staging slots of those cloud services as well. So that's definitely in the roadmap. It's there in vCurrent today, and you can use it today via the current portal. It's not there yet in the preview, but obviously, the functionality that you see in the current portal today will all have some, analog in the new portal, as well as, we'll be creating extensions of those experiences as well. So I think the best I can say there is, that scenario is supported today by Visual Studio Online, and it's in our roadmap to get into the new portal as well. The second question was, around complex build processes. What would you do if you got multiple environments, some very complex deployment processes? How would you manage that? So there's a whole lot of work being done in the build infrastructure. In particular, like a build definition in Visual Studio is backed by what we call like a build process template. And today, I don't know if you're familiar with those. Those are like XAML workflows, basically. But we're doing a lot of work to improve upon that. I believe Chris Patterson is here at the Build conference, and he's giving a session at 2:30, in fact, just following this one, where he's going to go pretty deep into some of that build associated stuff. And I know he'll have lots of great insights into specifically how you would use some of the new infrastructure they're doing to manage those things. We're also working on, we saw resource groups here as a container for a set of related resources. You can imagine putting, a whole SharePoint farm in one of those, or you can imagine, multiple websites and multiple databases, and you want to be able to replicate and provision those things, in a repeatable, sort of consistent way. That's what resource groups are going to provide, is that ability to kind of orchestrate that creation of those environments. And we absolutely are going to be able to connect some of this custom kind of build and deployment workflows in Visual Studio Online into those kind of repeatable environments, if you will. That story is, shaking out sort of as we speak, so I can't say much more about it than to say that, those things will come together and will create a great experience for you there. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move over.
Hi. Is it also possible to have multiple deployment slots?
Yes.
Yeah,
So you can have test, staging, and production and swap through each other.
Yes. Absolutely. And you can actually set up, if necessary, you could even potentially set up continuous deployment to those different slots if you wanted to do that.
I believe there's an asterisk on that. So I believe you can create multiple deployment slots. You can certainly have more than one slot, staging and test, for example. But swapping between them, I'm not sure that we support that. I think you can swap between any given slot and the production slot is how I believe it works. Though, to be honest, I'm not the expert. The person who's the expert is in the room, and he's giving a session immediately following this one. The operations session that I referred to before, I would encourage you to go to that session and ask Adam or Steven that same question. You'll probably get a little crisper answer than you might get from us.
I had one other question, if possible.
Yeah.
When are you going to make a team project, and when are you putting several projects in one team project? So let's say, now I see that you use team project and product as the same entity. Can you do multiple products in one team project? Work on
Actually, that's something that we didn't show, and I apologize, I probably should have shown that. On our team project blade, can we go back to, I could probably just show this real quick. Can we go back to
Demo machine number 2. Thank you.
All right. So we have a list of repositories. I'm not sure if this exactly meets your scenario, but we have a list of repositories, and one thing that we should have called out is that I can add as many repositories as I want here. And it's just as simple as a click of a button, add a new repository, and I can go from there. So is that?
That's also how we use it in the current version of Visual Studio. I was only wondering if you can really split several products into one team project, also with build and test and your backlog also, splitting it into products.
Yeah, I think that sounds like more of a Visual Studio Online question about how to manage your builds.
You can certainly, so any team project can contain multiple solutions, and you could, and multiple projects in those solutions, and you can actually choose specifically, for each build definition, which solution you want to build. And so, I think your repository could contain, for example, all those things, and each one of those solutions corresponding to a product, each one of those build definitions independently building one of those products and independently deploying that to a given environment that's appropriate for that. So I think that answers your question?
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
One of the other things, just to touch on that, we didn't really dig into too much. Bradley had mentioned it. When setting up that continuous deployment, you have a chance to pick what branch that you deploy to. So that might also help along those lines.
Yeah, we didn't show multiple branch support, but it's absolutely there, and there's a UI experience for how you navigate your branches as well.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and skip over to number 4.
Right. So I think the previous two individuals asked, questions that I wanted to ask about the different environments and deployment, continuous deployment. The other question I have is, can you use the Azure to do the deployment, but the actual deployment happens outside Azure?
Can you use Azure to do the actual deployment, but the deployment happens outside of Azure?
Right. So my website could be not in a cloud, but could be in a local data center. Could I still use Azure?
So basically you want to use the UI here to manage kind of more of an on-premise kind of environment?
That's
is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, all I can say about that is that what you see here is the service-based offering for Windows Azure. It's it's to the public cloud. We're absolutely committed to delivering great on-premises experiences that mirror what you see in the public cloud. We're not ready to announce anything today in terms of on-premise support, for what you see here, but absolutely, in the same way that in the vCurrent experiences we have great offerings for both the public and private cloud, you can imagine we'll be delivering those experiences to match. So
and we're really exposing the features that live within Visual Studio Online here. So really, whenever Visual Studio Online gets features like that, then we'll be able to integrate those here a little more.
Did that answer your question?
So is there a schedule or anticipated schedule?
We're not really talking schedule at this point. We're not ready to make any announcements with respect to timelines.
Yeah, right now what we want to do is we want to bring as much as we can into the Azure experience so our Azure customers have the power of Visual Studio Online in the portal and just continue to evolve that. We want to make it amazing. So that's really where our focus is.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to 3, I guess.
Hi. Since now Azure website supports auto-scaling and staging slot and traffic manager, when should I, if I have to choose between cloud services and Azure websites, what's the difference?
That's a really good question for the next session, I'll say. I'd say that, in that operations session, you're going to have sort of the resident experts on websites and the operations side of things. Honestly, weighing kind of the pros and cons of websites versus cloud services, I'd rather leave to them.
Okay. Yeah. I have another question. So all this stuff requires Visual Studio Online. Right now we are using TFS 2012 on-premises, TFS 2012 server. Is there a way to migrate all our history, all our Agile Scrum templates to Visual Studio Online with any migration tools?
Yeah. I'm certain it's possible, and the only reason I know that is that our team actually was on Visual Studio 2012, using that for our own, our own workflows, and we're actually doing a bulk migration over to VS 2013. I think very shortly after this conference. So I know it's possible. I'm not the expert actually on the Visual Studio tools in terms of how you can do those migrations between versions. If you want to come up after the session and talk to me personally, I can connect you with somebody who could actually help you with those kind of questions.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
So let's, we only have a little minute left, so why don't we take one question for each of you? Go ahead, Ford.
Hopefully this is quick. Let's say your company wouldn't allow a third party to host its source and work items. How would you recommend we use a tool like this? Or what features could we use and what couldn't we use?
So the question is, what if a third party would not let you host their source code or?
No, what if your company?
Oh, your company, sorry.
Yeah, it would forbid you from hosting, having a third party host it.
I see. So what if you don't want to actually put it in the cloud? Well, I think that kind of goes back to the same question about on-premise that was being asked before, like how much of this could I use against my own on-premise? I think the previous question was more around deployments to on-premise environments. I think you're asking kind of the inverse question, which is like my code and my work items I want to live on-premise, but I'm deploying maybe to the public cloud. And that, again, I think I'd kind of give the same sort of answer, that we're committed to delivering, great on-premises experiences and parity with, with our public offerings. We're not ready to announce any of the on-premise offerings today, so the most I can tell you is that it's in our roadmap to provide that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so actually it looks like we're out of time. If we could actually take your question up here, so that way we can get out of the way and let the next session get started.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and take the mics off and we'll come down off these stairs, and we're happy to kind of answer any additional questions in one-on-one. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.